And the bell is about to sound on Wall Street. According to this latest Fox News poll, when asked if they are better off now versus 6 years ago, 58% of respondents said they are not. Pollsters point out this goes against the president's claim that, quote, by almost every measure, the country's economy is better off now than when he took office. Jason Pride, Todd Schoenberger here with me. And we talked about this earlier, why the poll after poll, we see people just do not feel good. It doesn't matter what the numbers show. We're not feeling it.
No, we definitely aren't. And that's the thing about this recovery.
That dictates behavior.
Right. But here's the thing. And we constantly hear about how there's less participation in the stock market. We hear about the widening of the wealth gap. Clearly, you're going to see this as stocks continue to rise. We have, maybe a little over half of Americans invested in the stock market. This is really the only real revenue or wealth generator that's out there right now. I mean, it's definitely not in housing. I would never say it is. But with the stock market, you have to suspect that you have half of the Americans that don't feel good right now, and there's nothing to be surprised about that.
I think what you said here is really the underlying story. There's this bifurcation between the haves and the have-nots. Right. The haves are more in the minority. The have-nots are not necessarily have-nots, but they just don't feel like they're getting their just reward. And you see it in the data. The income disparities there, the spending disparities there, the ability to borrow disparity.
Yeah. That's why the economy bumps along the bottom. I mean, you could talk about vibrant numbers, but at the end of the day, it's just sort of stagnant.
You know, at the same time, the aggregate of all that is moving in the positive direction. So we do have to have a lifting of the next norm. Now, the other thing you have to recognize is that every economic cycle actually follows a fairly similar pattern. This one's more dramatic in that term, but the beginning of the economic recovery, you tend to see the lift in the high end of the economy, followed by the lift in the lower end of the economy.
So it does lift all boats at some point.
It doesn't lift all at the same time, but eventually you get the pickup.
Follow through.
The rhetoric, though, that we hear out of Washington, I can't help but think that there's a lot to do with what we hear. I mean, here you have the news items of the day. You constantly hear about the finger pointing. Who has this? Who doesn't? Yeah, constantly. And I think that's a real big problem because people hear this on the nightly news. They're not feeling good about things. I mean, the misery index right now is in check only because inflation is not creeping higher. Once that happens, people are going to be absolutely miserable, back into the Jimmy Carter days. So you have to suspect that this is going to continue for the foreseeable future until, obviously, there's a change in attitude.
Not to mention, you've got beheadings from terrorists on television. You've got, Putin driving through Ukraine. So there are reasons to be scared and upset.